in Cluj for the RST course and the RST for managers. I'm curious, how is the course different now, the rapid software testing course, as compared to when you started teaching it? I found some material dating from 95, I think.
That's when the first time I taught any public class. So that's the very beginning of my class was in 95. Well, it's interesting that you would refer back to 95 because there's huge changes since 95. When I started teaching in 95, I was very focused on the belief that I knew techniques that were good techniques, and I knew answers that were good answers, and my job was to get you to know that too. So I was focused very much on lecture, but when I did exercises, I would have right answers from my exercises, and I would make sure that you knew what the right answers were. So I did a lot of critique when people their answers didn't match my answers. And I received help from an experienced teacher in 1996 who worked on me about this and helped me see that what I'm actually doing is not conveying knowledge to somebody, but I'm facilitating their growth. He helped me. Yeah, well, Jerry Weinberg was one of the people that helped me, that's true. Also, you reminded me that in 1995 I took the problem-solving leadership class and then the change shop class, which were both Weinberg classes. And a lot of what I did to change the class after that was based on my experiences in Weinberg's class. And Weinberg does what he calls organic teaching, which he creates situations, and then whatever happens, happens. And then he turns that into a lesson. Instead of having in advance an idea of what the lesson is going to be, what he creates is rich situations that could go in many different directions, and whichever direction they go, that will be the lesson for today. And he lets the energy of the students take it in one way or take it to another way. So what he knew how to do was read a situation to read a student, and then to react to that student in a way that helps them, hopefully, the most. And I saw him do this. I got very excited. I decided I wanted to learn how to do it. It's very hard to learn how to do it. It takes a lot of practice.
So speaking of students, do you see any change in how students are in your class? This is quite a general question because, of course, you teach the class in a lot of parts of the world, but is it over time that you see different patterns in the students of the class?
I think it's very hard to tell because my own perceptual system is so different now than it was, so I'm mostly reading my own bias. For me, I feel that people definitely listen to me more and argue with me less, but I think that could be because I'm 10 years older now, and they're just more willing to listen to an older man than they were to a younger man. That could be one thing. It may be because I've learned certain phrases or certain intonations, or I've learned to read people well enough so that I know how to stroke their ego in the right way at the right time so that they respond well. So it could be that. Because I do a lot of different kinds of praising in the class, any way that I can. I'll do that as much as I can because I find that it makes people more receptive. Also, it's a good feeling in and of itself. I think it's an effective training technique. There's a number of reasons why I do it. But I found, unlike when I started, that it's not important. It's very much less important for me to tell someone that their answer is wrong than it is for me to tell someone else that their answer is very interesting. And then the person whose answer is wrong will see that, and they will criticize themselves. They don't necessarily need me to tell them your answer isn't so great. If they see someone else who I say, look at that, that's interesting for this reason, and this reason, and this reason, then they can go, oh, I see that. I didn't really do that, did I? Maybe I can do more of that. I found that people criticize themselves so much that if I even whisper a criticism, it already feels too loud to them. You know, we all know this from any personal relationships we're in. You know, if my wife makes a mistake with the travel arrangements, I don't need to say, here's why it's very important to double check this. She'll say, I know. Right? All I need her to know is that there was a problem. And then she automatically is kicking herself just because she knows there's a problem. And I don't need to criticize that at all. So I rely on people's ability and their interest to criticize themselves, and I just gently nudge them. Unless I'm trying to get someone to wake up to a big hole in their thinking, in which case I may have to go right at them.
What about the positive feedback that you were talking about? There are different levels of feedback that you can work on.
Yes.
How do you play with those?
In order for me to get people to listen, they have to feel that they're safe, they're respected. So I want to establish that first. Mm-hmm. So I know that for me, that's how I am able to calm myself down. When I'm in a classroom, I disrupt the classroom. Almost every classroom I'm in, I will disrupt it, and sometimes by a lot. If I try to take a class, I don't take classes unless the teacher is very, very good.
So is it the fact that you provide some level of feedback and you try to create this safe environment, is it partly because you want to create a comfortable zone for you? Or?
Oh, also that is also true. I'm trying to do a couple of things. I'm trying to get them to the students to be in a state where they feel like I'm ready to listen, even though there's a risk that I'm going to mess up. But I'm also trying to protect the student from me in cases where I might lose my temper, which sometimes happens. So I want to create a situation where I feel they're protected from me, which allows me to calm myself down. I won't be as nervous, because if I'm nervous, I won't teach as well. So I want to be comfortable. I want to feel like I can say what comes into my head, and I also want them to feel comfortable. And to me, that's the prerequisite. We can't even talk about the technical stuff unless you stop being so terrified of being stupid. And that is the problem. I meet people at all ages, at all levels, and everyone is terrified that they're too stupid. And I know this because I use a complicated vocabulary, and I wear glasses that look like this. And I speak very confidently about models and Bayesian probability and things like that. I throw stuff like that in. And then the reaction I often get is, oh, well, I'm just a beginner, so I guess I'm useless, and I should just leave. I must be in the wrong classroom. But I'm not going to pretend that I don't know what I know. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not excited about all the fascinating aspects of testing. That's not right. But at the same time, I don't want to scare them away. So I need to do. Here's what I do. My strategy is to bring it out into the open. To bring out into the open, since you probably aren't ready to confess to me, I will confess for you to everyone in the class all at once. I'll make a confession for you that this dynamic is going on. A typical thing that I say is, half the class is smart enough to be testers, and the other half is also smart enough, but they think they're not. Now, I don't know which half is which. I don't know who's who. And people usually smile or laugh a little bit. I don't know whether you're smart enough and you think you're not, or you're smart enough and you think you are. I know how to deal with each kind of person. But I just want you to know that this is something that we've got to be aware of. And I know that some of the words that I use might make you feel like, oh, I didn't read that book, so I guess I'm supposed to go somewhere else and learn for 10 years before I come back here. No, you're in the right place. Even if you're a beginner, even if you feel confused, that confusion is normal. Now, that second technique I use is called normalization, something I picked up from a therapy book. Normalization is when someone has a feeling and you say, that feeling is normal. So now, if you have authority and you're seen as someone who is in a position to know, then the person who hears that feeling is normal, they go, oh, well, I don't have to feel bad about having the feeling then. Now, feeling bad about having a feeling just adds noise, just adds more stress. And all that noise and all that stress, that's parts of your brain that are now not working on the problem.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Now, of course, I also do task level feedback. And that's something that I think distinguishes flattery or very generic kind of praise from really useful praise. So one of the things you'll see me do when you see me teach is I'll say to somebody, I can tell that you're very good at this. Do you want to know how I know that? And they almost always say yes. Actually, they always say yes. I've never had anybody not say yes. Like, sure, how did you know? And then what I have to do is I have to list at least 3 specific observations that I have made. And they're usually really detailed observations, like as if Sherlock Holmes is talking. I'm inspired by Sherlock Holmes because he'll say, like, well, clearly the killer was an Armenian. Like, well, how do you know that, Sherlock? Well, observe this cigarette butt, which, as you could tell from the brown paper, that's Armenian wood pulp, from the jub tree or whatever, right? And I always thought that is so cool. So I try to do the same kind of thing. I did this with one of the young ladies who was in the class just recently. I wanted her to know that I thought I was impressed by her, and that it wasn't just because I was randomly impressed by her. It was some specific things that she was doing that she might not be aware of, but that were increasing her credibility. So I'm providing a service in a couple different ways. One, maybe she's not aware of these things, and maybe becoming aware of them, she can start to do them on purpose. And she can think, what other things am I doing, right? So one of the things that I mentioned is that when I looked at her, she didn't look away. She would hold my gaze in a steady way. Now that's something I associate with people who are very comfortable in their own skin. Okay, so not like shifting around, or also stillness. She didn't fidget or slump or turn away at all with her body. That shows lack of fear. So she apparently feels safe and is able to look steady. So that's good. And then I added a couple of more things to that. I said something about her voice. I said something about a phrase she used, or a particular kind of phrasing she used. And then I said, for that reason, I think you're not afraid of me, so I'm not going to let you use the pass protocol. I do something in my class where you can stop me from attacking you if you feel attacked by saying the word pass. But I told her she's not allowed to use it. And I usually pick a couple people in the class that I say you're not allowed to use it.
That's useful in the sense that it helps her maybe understand what she does right and how to do things better.
That's also that she knows that I'm paying attention. The main reason why I'm trying to do it is I want people to realize he's actually looking at us very carefully. And so he's paying attention. We're not just sheep that you can't tell one from the other. We're not just random anonymous individuals. I want people to have the impression that I'm dealing with each one of them, noticing things that they do, and so that they could feel that I'm really there with them.